is really about helping someone create a lifestyle that
Mm-hmm.
fosters health, right? And health in every aspect. So physical,
Right.
mental, emotional, spiritual, right? All the things. We deal with sleep, stress, energy, food sensitivities. What we know is that whether we are burning fat or storing fat,
Mm-hmm.
whether we are metabolically well or not, right, is a function of our blood sugar. Protein and fiber at every meal makes your moving fat no big deal.
Welcome. I am Claudia Noriega-Bernstein, abundance coach, author, and host of the award-winning Don't Shrink to Fit podcast, which recently won the Woman in Podcasting Award in the coaching category. Over the past 15 years, I have the privilege of connecting with women from around the world, and I am here to share all the tools I have learned along the way to help you uncover new possibilities in your life. In this space, you will hear impactful stories from women who have walked in similar shoes, sharing their wisdom and insights. Together, we will explore your passions, reveal your inner gifts, and embrace possibilities you may not have thought were within reach. Let's grow beyond limits so you never have to shrink to fit again. I have today Jenn Trepeck. She's a powerhouse in the wellness space. She's also the host of Salad with a Side of Fries, which is totally my jam. And she is here to teach us about what to eat and why. So, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm very excited too because I eat everything.
Great.
And I don't eat meat though. I have to say, I'm a
Okay,
pescatarian. I don't eat meat,
great.
but I like to try everything. And I know there is a lot of things that we're not supposed to eat. And we're going to get to that a little later. But I first would like you to talk a little bit about your journey because you didn't go to school for this. You had a whole different idea how your life was going to be, right?
Yeah, I mean, my background is really business and marketing, and I came to all this wellness stuff. I call it a saga. It was my own saga of weight management and trying to figure out my health and all of this stuff. And I grew up a dancer, and so I sort of joke that I was like the skinny one in a family of dieters, but really,
Mm-hmm.
I grew up on every fad diet there was in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, right? Like did it all. And then when I was in business school and started to gain weight and all of those things, I was like, okay, well, I know what to do. I watched this my whole life and
Right.
tried every diet under the sun, gained and lost the whole nine. And um, fast forward, I graduated, moved to New York City, and was working full time. I was a photo shoot producer, and then I was working full time in hedge funds. And I had started my health coaching on the side because it was like worlds collided. Like on the one
Right.
hand, I had my own like weight management saga, right? Living on that roller coaster up and down happening. And at the same time, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I just know that I cannot work for somebody else for the rest of my life. I don't know what the thing is that I'm going to do when I'm working for myself, but I
Mm-hmm.
know that that's what is going to need to be. And frankly, when I learned about the curriculum that I base my practice on now, everything changed. And I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is what
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do outside of my full time job to eventually just work for myself. And that's what I did. I built my practice on the side for 12 years. So,
Wow.
longer than I anticipated, but there was some value in that, right? I was single. I'm still single, not married, no kids. It was like I could keep collecting on both sides of the equation.
Right.
So I kept doing it till I either, the plan was to keep doing it till it's either not sustainable anymore
Mm-hmm.
or I didn't want to do both anymore. And so July of 2019 I left my full-time job. That's when I launched Salad with a Side of Fries, my podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Um and the rest, as they say, is history. Now there's no going back, I think.
But I mean, I think it's great that you're doing something that you're passionate about.
Yeah,
I hear of people that spend their whole life doing something that they hate just because they have financial security.
right,
Um, what's the purpose? If you would
right,
die tomorrow, would you spend the rest of that day doing something that you hate? No. So I
right.
love it that you had clarity and you were able to make that decision. But before we go any further, explain to my audience, please, what it is a wellness coach. Because a lot of people have different ideas. When we have, like, I remember a while ago, I used to just have on my title abundance coach, and people would think, oh, yeah, she talks about money. No, I don't talk about money. So I have to kind of tweak it and put the inner in the front so then they know that I work with you, not with your possessions. So, what is
Yeah.
a wellness coach?
Yeah. So, health coaching is really about helping someone create a lifestyle that
Mm-hmm.
fosters health, right? And health in every aspect. So, physical,
Right.
mental, emotional, spiritual, right? All the things. My
Mm-hmm.
focus is really nutrition and lifestyle. So, my specialty tends to be weight management, metabolic health, cardiovascular health, those kinds of things. But of course, we deal with sleep, stress, energy, food sensitivities. We get
It's a
into
salad.
stress management, right? Stress management, all the things, because everything in the body is connected.
Mhm.
We talk about the activity and movement. I always say to everybody, I'm not a personal trainer. I know more than
Right.
the average bear on that side, but I'm not a personal trainer. Um, and so, really, we work with, I work with a 12-week curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
And I sort of describe it as 12 weeks to help you build the tool belt so that you can go live the rest of your life.
Right.
So my objective is not for you to need me for forever,
I
right?
love
It's
that. I
about,
don't like
yeah,
codependency either. Let me give you the
right.
tools, let me get you in the right place, and let me watch you fly. I
Yeah,
think that's the best coaching because at the end of the day, that's what you want. You want to empower your client to continue living the life that she desires without you having to be telling them every day what to do. So I think that's
right,
brilliant. And
right.
I correct me if I'm wrong, but we think that the less we eat, the skinny we are going to be. So, right?
We were taught that,
Yes.
right? We were taught calories in, calories out. We were
Mm-hmm.
taught eat less, move more,
Yeah.
you know, but we know that that's not really how the body works. And you know this, like you don't need a nutrition degree to know that your body is going to do different things with a cucumber than with Skittles,
Right.
right?
But you take the Skittles, you get the sugar boost, and you're like, I'm fine. I feel energetic. I can finish my day. So that's the tricky part,
But
I
can
guess.
you, right? It's not really. The higher glycemic, those higher in sugar foods, the higher
Mm-hmm.
carbohydrates, simple carbohydrate foods give us a fast, short burst of energy. Because what happens shortly after, like, what do most people eat for breakfast, right? A
Yeah,
bagel,
coffee and
muffin.
a bagel. Yes.
Yeah,
Bread and
right?
a drink.
Donut.
Right.
Yeah. And then, so we have energy for a little bit. And then what
Mm-hmm.
happens mid morning?
You're tired.
We're hungry again. We're tired. We want more
Mhm.
coffee. We're hungry again. We go, oh, but it's not really time for lunch. So we try to like have other things. Our blood sugar, right, is on this roller coaster. Our energy follows that blood sugar roller coaster.
Mm-hmm.
And that sets us up for metabolic disease, heart disease, storing fat, frustrated with our energy, feeling like we can't make it through the day and like something's wrong with us.
Right.
Right. And then we beat ourselves up because, again, we've been told to eat less, move more, but we're hungry again mid morning. And there must be something wrong with me that I'm hungry again mid morning and it's not time to eat. But,
So we
like,
eat
of
whatever
course we
at that
are.
point,
Right.
right?
Right. It's a little something to get us through, which tends
Mhm.
to be something else that's, you know, sugar laden, higher in simple carbohydrates, right? Those kinds of things. And so we're on this roller coaster. So, what we know is that whether we are burning fat or storing fat, whether we are metabolically well or not, right, is a function of our blood sugar. So whether we are burning fat or storing fat, whether we are metabolically well or metabolically jeopardized, right? It's a function of blood sugar. And so we don't want our blood sugar perfectly stable either, right? We want our blood sugar to respond to foods that we eat, but we want it to stay within sort of like this middle range where we're avoiding the extremes of highs and lows. Because remember, our energy is following that too. So if we're living in these highs and lows, you notice it in your energy. So to keep our blood sugar stable, right? To keep us in this zone where we're never storing fat, the magical formula, all the note takers, write this down. I say it all the time. Protein and fiber at every meal makes your moving fat no big deal. So protein is clean, lean protein. You're a pescatarian? Awesome. Eat what you like. Don't eat what you don't like. Right? Fiber is vegetables and sometimes fruit. Fiber are the carbohydrates that our body needs. So yes, your vegetables and fruit are carbs, but they're quality carbs, right? And then the only difference between a meal or a snack is how much we have at a time, and then therefore how long till we'll need to fuel again, right? If we have less at a time, we'll be hungry sooner than if we have more, you know. So a snack on average is probably going to last about like 1 to 2 hours. A meal is probably going to get you like 4 to 5, maybe 5.5 hours. So we want to fuel regularly, protein and fiber. And then quality fat, we want a couple times a day, right? I don't know about you, but I grew up in the low fat, no fat era, right?
Yeah.
We were the Snackwell's generation and all the things where we weren't supposed to have fat. Friends, fat, quality fat is so important for the human body. Like every cell in your body has a fatty membrane around it. If we don't eat fat, our body will hold on to things. Our body will create fat if we are not giving it what it needs. Your brain, by the way, is mostly fat, mostly omega-3s, DHA and EPA, right? So we need this quality nutrition in order for our body to do what it needs to do. So we can translate this into, you know, when we get to some practice, right, and understand different combinations of protein and fiber and quality fat, and we say, okay, this snack lasts me this long, and this meal lasts me this long, then we can start to look at our day and say, wow, I have a really packed day. The next time I'm going to be able to eat is like 5 hours from now, which means I need this meal that's going to last me that long, right? One of the things I hear from people all the time is that they're not hungry in the morning. They don't like eating a big breakfast,
I don't eat
right?
breakfast, right? I do, but
Okay.
then people say that.
Right,
I
right.
don't eat
People say
breakfast,
that,
so
yeah.
they skip it.
Yes. So, ladies, please do not skip breakfast. Coffee is not breakfast. We can talk about this in a second, but no caffeine, no coffee before fuel. And then, even if you're not super hungry in the morning, fine, have a snack size amount of food. We need fuel within an hour to 90 minutes of waking up. And then, so if what we end up having then is more of a snack size amount of food, then maybe mid-morning we're having what's our actual, you know, quote unquote, breakfast or meal size amount of food, right? That's fine. But something, proper fuel in our system within an hour to 90 minutes of waking up, right? So let's say, what time do you wake up, Claudia?
6:30.
Okay, great.
6:30, right?
Yeah, so really by like 7:30 or 8, we need to get some sort of quality fuel in your system, right? If we end up with a snack at, you know, 7:30 or 8, then maybe we're eating actual, you know, breakfast, you know, between 9 and 10.
Right.
Okay. right? Then we have a meal size amount of food between 9 and 10. Now we're looking probably around like 1 to 2. We're looking for lunch. Well, that seems reasonable, right? 1 to 2, we have lunch.
Right.
Depending on what time dinner is, right? If dinner is at 6, great. If dinner is going to be at 7 or 8, we might
Mm-hmm.
need a snack in between there. It's all appropriate, right? Frankly, everybody's so afraid of being hungry. And
Right.
then everybody's afraid of eating, if they're not hungry, right? It's this kind of wild ride. So,
It is because we
hunger,
think
yeah.
that, it's okay if I don't eat because I'm not hungry. That should mean that my body doesn't need the fuel.
Well, it depends, right? And this is where, we can teach ourselves out of paying attention to our bodies. So,
Mm-hmm.
the same way that we can become resistant to insulin, we know that to be diabetes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Type 2 diabetes is insulin resistance, where we don't respond to insulin, the hormone, right?
Right.
The same way that we can become insulin resistant, we can become resistant to the hormones that tell us when we're hungry and when we're satisfied. So if you feel like you don't realize you're hungry, you're not hungry, then you see food at the restaurant and you go, "Oh, I was starving, but I didn't even know." Right? Or we're not hungry all day, we have this large meal. Or once we start eating, we find it difficult to stop,
Mm-hmm.
right? These hormones are called ghrelin, that's the hunger hormone. And leptin is the I'm satisfied hormone, I'm done eating hormone. We can become resistant to those hormones where we're not properly responding to them. So there's a little bit of an adjustment to ensure that we are properly responding to the hormones in our body. So if we're not hungry, are we not hungry because we've had proper fuel? Are we not hungry because we're stressed and it's really our body in the stress response? Are we not hungry because we are ghrelin resistant, because we're not responding to the presence of this hormone that is saying that we're hungry? Right? So that's where, especially for all of us who grew up, or at times in our lives lived on every fad diet, we've taught ourselves out of paying attention to our body's signals. We've paid attention to
Mm-hmm.
these rules instead. And it's created the situation that now many of us experience, with weight gain, metabolic syndrome, not understanding our bodies, on top of the fact that then you add, perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause, right? And it's
Whole different
just
ball game. Right.
right.
Because your body
Yeah,
also changes in that process. But
right.
what do you think about the people that fast until noon, for example? And
Yeah.
that's just the way they live. So it's not even about, I don't want to have breakfast in the morning. It's like my lifestyle is this way. I don't eat anything until noon. Do you think that's a good thing? How the body react to that?
Yeah. So it's something we want to look at with each individual. The one
Mm-hmm.
thing I'll tell you is that you create your lifestyle doesn't create you. So you have trained your system into that approach. The question is why, right? And is it really serving you and your goals? So, what are your goals? What are your objectives? Frankly, that kind of fasting I like
Mm-hmm.
much better for male bodies than female bodies, right?
Oh,
So, the kind of fasting that I'm a really big fan of for women is ending food 3 to 4 hours before bed, right? Especially if you're, 40 plus in that perimenopause,
mm-hmm.
right? Make it 4 hours. So, ideally, we're ending food 3 to 4 hours before bed, and then we're starting food within an hour to 90 minutes of waking up, right?
Okay.
So, let's say you had, going back to like the example that we said before, we were having breakfast like 7:30 to 8,
Mm-hmm.
right? And let's say dinner was, at 6:30 or 7,
Right.
bed at 11, 10:30, 11, right? You're getting almost a 12-hour fast in that, right? Those who
Right.
want to take it to more of an extreme, You can keep your feeding hours to daylight and your fasting hours to when the sun is down. But for our bodies to function and do everything they're supposed to do in a day, right? And in our lives, we need nutrients. We need fuel. Expecting the body to perform without fuel
is a no-no.
is a stress signal.
It's
Yes,
a no-no.
it's a stress signal, right? Think about our biology is still very caveman, right? Prehistoric. So when would be the case that you had to perform, you had to fight flight, right? Without fuel. It's a time of famine. It's a time of survival.
Right.
And when we're in that stress response, anything that is not critical to survival of the next 20 minutes, how long that stress response is supposed to last, turns off. So it turns off our metabolism. It turns off our reproductive system. It turns off our immune system. It turns off growing hair and our nails and all these things, because none of those things matter if we don't survive the next 20 minutes.
Right.
Right? So, even just taking a step back, taking common sense approach to the feeding hours versus fasting hours. The average American, given 24 hours a day to eat, doesn't get the nutrients in that the body actually needs. So how we think that's going to happen in 6 hours or 8 hours, just common sense wise, doesn't compute. And by the way, if your body doesn't use something when it's needed, it either stores it as fat or eliminates it. There's no other storage. Right? So the only vitamins that the body will hold on to are fat-soluble vitamins, A, D, E, and K. All other vitamins you're going to pee out if you don't use them when you have them. So it's not like, oh no, like another great analogy. It's not like we can be like, oh, I don't need to exercise today. I went to recess once in 2nd grade. Like, no, right? It's kind of the same idea when we're like, oh, I don't need to eat. I ate 4 days ago. Like, that's not how the body works. Right?
And I'm so guilty on that because sometimes I am working the whole day and I love what I do, but sometimes I have extra projects and I skip lunch. And then my husband will come and knock on my door in my studio and go, "Did you remember to eat?" And I'm like, "No, but it's already 4:30. I'm just gonna wait for dinner." And then what happened is, like, let's say we go out to dinner because I work the whole day, I don't feel like cooking. I go to dinner and the first thing in the table is bread.
The bread. Yep.
And that bread, I mean, I'm Latin, I'm sorry. Bread and rice all the way.
Well, we're human. I mean, I think that's a human thing, right?
I can't say no to bread. And even when we go with my daughters, they'll say, "Do you want more bread?" And I'm like, "No, don't." And they'll go, "Yeah, bring more bread." And I'm like, "That's it. That goes my meal," because I'm already full by the time the fish come or the vegetable come.
And when we start with that high glycemic bread, when we start with the bread that flips the switch and spikes our blood sugar, our body is now storing our meal, the fish and vegetables, as fat.
Oh. They should bring the bread halfway with the meal and not in the front.
Yeah. Start with protein, fiber, quality fat, right? Start with a little salad. Start with, some protein from an appetizer. Start with a vegetable side, right? If you're really hungry, start with a vegetable soup, right? Have something, protein, fiber, lean protein, vegetables or fruit, right? Have some quality nutrition and then have some of the bread. If you think of the high glycemic foods like the bread as the color red, and the low glycemic foods as the color white, right? Your fish and vegetables and olive oil and avocado, right? So we start with the bread, it's red, high glycemic, spikes our blood sugar. If we put those things together, right? If we have the vegetables, the fish, maybe some oil or avocado, whatever, something, all of that
Mm-hmm.
white stuff. And then we have some bread. What color do we get? So white mixed with red is
Right, it's pink.
pink. Well, not as red as red, not as
No.
white as white. So we're going to
Right.
have our blood sugar somewhere in the middle, right?
Right.
Well, what happens then if we have more of the fish and vegetables and less of the bread? Well, maybe now we're having light pink,
Right.
closer to white, still enjoying the bread, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not impacting our blood sugar in the same way.
And talking about the sugar, there are like, for example, some fruit that it has bad sugar, right?
Look, nobody died from eating pineapple, right? Unless you're
Right.
allergic, right? We
Right.
didn't get to this place of metabolic dysfunction, dysregulation over
Mm-hmm.
fruit.
Right.
Full stop. Fruit has natural sugars.
Mm-hmm.
Fruit also has vitamins and minerals. And provided we're eating the whole fruit and not having fruit juice, but actually eating the whole fruit, there's fiber.
Right. Right.
So it's part of our quality carbohydrates. Now, there are certain situations where someone might want to focus on some of the lower glycemic fruit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe avoiding cantaloupe or pineapple or some of these, but or mango. But there are also situations where, like I said, nobody got here over mango.
Right.
Like
Right.
it, it's this or what, right? So if it's mango or Skittles, eat the mango,
Right.
right? There's nutrition there. There are nutrients in that,
Mm-hmm.
you know. But to your point, there is a piece of understanding that, you know, there's nuance to this. So even the ripeness of our food or how the food is prepared can change how it impacts our blood sugar. So a
Mm-hmm.
banana, how many people, like I hear this all the time, people have been told to avoid bananas, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bananas, when they are yellow with a little bit of green on them still,
Mm-hmm.
actually are lower glycemic
Right.
and have what's called a resistant starch. It's a really health supporting kind of fiber.
Mm-hmm.
Once that banana has some of those brown spots, it turns high glycemic and it can
Right.
spike our blood sugar in a different way. So sometimes the ripeness of a food impacts it and how it's prepared impacts it. So think about rice is a really good example for this because there's I grew up with the boil in a bag, like 10-minute rice
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
as the quick option, as opposed to the one that took hours to cook.
Right.
Now there's even ones that are microwave and 60-second rice,
Right.
right? In order for that grain to cook that quickly, whether it's 10 minutes or 60 seconds,
Mm-hmm.
it was processed. Something was done to it in a factory in order to make it cook that quickly,
Right.
right? That's sort of kind of the way to think about it is like the farther from nature, the higher
Mm-hmm.
glycemic, right? So if we
Right.
can choose rice that takes a while to cook, it's actually like medium glycemic or low
Mm-hmm.
glycemic
Mm-hmm.
compared to the 10-minute rice or the 60-second rice. They have
Right.
less nutrients, there's less fiber, there's less protein because the processing of that food removes nutrients in that process, and then the way we cook it. So there's trade-offs in all of that. There's nuance to these pieces. And a simple way is to just say, all right, let's focus on eating the foods that don't have labels that we have to learn how to read, right? But I certainly work with people to help you really understand how to read labels and what are we getting and how do we choose these things? Because it's not about saying, okay, I'm never going to have rice again or I'm
Right.
never going to eat bread again. It's about how do we put it all together so that it doesn't impact us the same way it does right now, right? So we can have our health and enjoy the bread basket and enjoy birthdays and not obsess over, whatever it is.
Yeah, I don't think it is about eliminating food
Right.
from your diet, but kind of balancing in a way that you're eating more of what is good for you and less of what is not. And
Right.
talking about rice, do you see a big difference between brown rice and white rice of that, or that's a myth?
No, there's not that much difference between brown rice and white rice. I can't speak. Um, it's sort of it goes back to how it's cooked. I would
Okay.
prefer somebody have steamed white rice than
Mm-hmm.
boil in a bag brown rice.
Okay.
Right? I would rather better yet, the most nutrient dense rice is actually
Mm-hmm.
black rice or forbidden rice is sometimes what it's called,
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
purple rice it's sometimes
Yeah.
called. It actually has the most protein, the most fiber of any rice variety.
Mm-hmm.
It also is packed with antioxidants. So black rice actually rivals blueberries in their antioxidants. So you can level up your rice, just get some black rice. But
Yeah.
even then, once you have the
Oh,
black
never
rice,
soda
right? We're gonna,
with some lobster
yeah,
would be great.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. Um, and then we want to cook it the old-fashioned way,
Right.
you know. So, there's a lot of things where it's called like greenwashing or nutri washing these
Mm-hmm.
packaged foods where we've been told brown rice is so much healthier. We've been told
I
all of
know.
these things. Yeah,
And then we believe that, and that's what we
right,
buy because we still want to have the right, even though for me, it doesn't taste the same. I like to cook
right.
it. I mean, in my country, you cook it with olive oil and then you put garlic and then, you cook the rice. I mean, it's a whole
Yeah,
process. And I much rather wait the 30 minutes or 40 minutes for the rice to be cooked than boiling something that is not going to have any flavor.
right.
But I have
Yeah,
noticed that now I'm 58, so the older I'm getting, the food affect my body differently. I could be eating exactly the same thing that I was eating on my
yep,
20s, but my body receive it different. And the food and the fat or whatever you call it, storage in different places when
yes,
you're getting older. Why is
yes.
that?
It's hormones, right? It's estrogen. It's complicated, right? Is the
Mm-hmm.
short answer. But essentially, our body responds to these nutrients differently. Our body has different hormone balances.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, it's imbalance.
Mm-hmm.
And so while that is what happens, it doesn't mean we have to accept that. It
Right.
means that that's a time where we want to potentially look at what our nutrition choice is. What do we need to adjust? How do
Mm-hmm.
we need to reevaluate? Maybe there are some supplementation pieces that would help fill in some gaps and help us, better respond and better
Mm-hmm.
absorb nutrients and things like that. But it's complicated in the way estrogen um, functions with our metabolism and our fat and all these pieces. And frankly, one of the other sides to this that makes it um, also just complex is that it's
Mm-hmm.
not just, a single hormone being high or low. It's that hormones need to exist in balance, right?
Right.
So when it comes to, hormone replacement therapy or some of these options, it's about the balance of those hormones and getting a clear picture of what's happening for you, because that's where we're all different in terms
Mm-hmm.
of when and to what extent and what's happening in that balance. So it's a little bit of a puzzle, but it makes the argument for working with somebody, because trying to figure it out on your own can feel so frustrating.
Right. You don't know what you're eating and what you're supposed to eat.
Right.
But when it comes to kids, for example, um, you introduce different food to kids when they're little, especially because you want to know if they're allergic to something and what works with the kid, if it gives a stomach pain, or maybe a kid it has more gas or have different issues. So you start introducing the kids to different vegetables and different things little by little. Um, in your experience, what, for the parents that are listening, what would be the vegetables that you should introduce the kid to first? Because there are some kids that just don't want to see anything green.
for some reason,
Right.
right?
Right.
But it depends. Like I used to trick my girls. I used to make like meat sauce, but actually with cauliflower. And they
Yeah.
didn't know the difference because it feels, like if it's meat, but with the red sauce, it was cauliflower. So here you go, you have your pasta or whatever with cauliflower and red sauce. They didn't know any better. Or I would do mashed potatoes, and I would boil spinach and put it in the blender, and they got a green mashed potato, and it was fun. There
Yep.
was a mashed potato, so I would get creative with them so I can introduce them to the vegetables. But what vegetables do you think are the most important for kids to have a good, nutrition when they're little?
Yeah. So I'm going to say this in a couple of. First of all, there are people who are more qualified to answer the which foods when piece for little
Hmm.
kids.
Right.
When it comes to the nutrition side, all of them are helpful and important.
Hmm.
We want to introduce them to variety and to all of them and many, many times. So, like I said, somebody else can tell you this one at this age, this one at a different age.
Right.
And yes, we can certainly, like, spinach is a great one because it really doesn't have flavor. So you could blend it up. Carrots, too, you could blend up and put in a marinara sauce, and nobody's ever
Hmm.
going to know. Right?
Right.
Sure, they will get some of the vitamins and minerals from that, but it's not the same as introducing them to carrots and spinach. Right?
Okay.
So, one of the things that we talk about, and I wish I could find, I can't remember what the actual statistic is, but I want to say it's something like 132 exposures to a food in a lifetime before we really know if we like it or not.
Wow.
So a food exposure it could be that it's on your plate
Mm-hmm.
and they see you eating it and they don't even taste it. Then
Mm.
a food exposure could be, tasting it off of your plate, having it cooked a variety of different ways. So, okay,
Mm-hmm.
maybe they don't like the carrots in soup. What if we did raw carrots with hummus? Okay, we don't like
Right.
hummus. Do we like guacamole? Great. Do the raw carrot with guacamole.
Or ranch or
Okay,
whatever, but then
right.
they
Or
can
ranch,
try
whatever.
the actual
Right.
flavor of that
And
vegetable.
then maybe, that's not our favorite. Let's try them roasted, right?
Mm.
If we like pasta, do the roasted carrots with marinara sauce. We like, Chinese food, do it with, liquid aminos and ginger or something, right? Take the things that they like and
Mm-hmm.
put it with the vegetables. Prepare them a whole variety of different, like each time they taste it, right? Each time they're exposed to it, it's a little bit different. And what didn't we like about it? Is it the texture? Is it the flavor? Is it the color, right? What is it? Because there are purple carrots. Do we want to
Right.
try a purple carrot, right?
Right.
Like,
On potatoes. They're purple
right.
potatoes, though. Right.
Exactly. So it's about the variety. It's about continuing to try them.
Mm-hmm.
And I find a couple key factors is in our energy around it for the kids. So we want to approach it either neutral.
Mm-hmm.
Neutral is the easiest. So there isn't pressure to like it or not like it because some kids, like if you say, I think you're going to like it, some kids will say, I don't, just because they don't, want to agree with you.
Right.
They're, but we certainly do not want to say, I'm not sure if you'll like it.
Right.
Right? We don't want to put that in their heads.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this is an adult food. Nope, food's food for humans.
Right.
Right? So we want that exposure. We want them to play with it. We don't want it to feel pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So try it. If you like it, you can have more. You don't like it, you don't have to eat it.
That's true.
And then we try it a bunch of different ways, cook different ways, raw sometimes mixed with other things, right? And putting together the things that they like with the thing that's the new flavor too. Does that
So
make
they can
sense?
try. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. I think
Yeah.
that, you gotta get creative so kids start trying different things and discover what it is that they like and they don't.
Hello, ladies. I am so excited to invite you to join the Inner Radiance Collective, launching this Mother's Day. This is a sacred space for women ready to step into their power, purpose, and abundance. Whether you are a busy mom feeling burned out or a woman craving for more joy, balance, and meaning, this membership is designed for you. We offer 3 powerful levels, including my Inner Radiance Mastermind Signature Program, where you will get one-on-one support in my proven transformation framework. If you're ready to put yourself back on the priority list, heal, grow, and shine from the inside out, this is your time. Tools, support, community, sisterhood. You know I love to over deliver, and there is so much waiting for you. DM me to learn more or subscribe to my newsletter. Your radiance is calling. I will have more details in the description of this show. And now, back to the interview.
Let's talk about your podcast. I mean,
Yeah.
first of all, I think I know where the name come from because it's I think in Philly or next to Philly they eat the salad
They
with the
do,
French
but they
fries.
put, yeah, but they put fries on the salad. That's not my
Yeah.
jam.
No,
Like,
no.
I want a side of fries.
I
I want,
always want a
the
side of
healthy with
fries.
the indulgent.
There is something about a side of fries. Sometimes I will go to a restaurant and I'm ordering a meal, whatever, and a side of fries. It's
Yeah,
something about the fries. It's kind of like a comfort food. And
for
and
sure.
and I love it with ketchup and mayo. I make my own little sauce
Yep.
there, and that's my favorite thing. I think ketchup now came out with that sauce that you can actually buy it already mixed. It's not like Thousand Island because it doesn't have the pickles, but I
Yeah, it's
love that
Russian
flavor.
dressing is without the pickles, and then Thousand Island has the pickles.
Yes,
Yeah.
there you go. But
Yeah.
why do we crave that kind of food? Why do we
I
crave the
mean,
potato, the French
I'm
fries?
with you. I think it's comfort food. I think it's what we grew up on. I
Hmm.
think it's that, you know, thing that we really enjoy. It's a little naughty, if you will, right? Um, I
Because
think
it's fried, and they usually tell
right,
you don't eat anything fried, but
right.
French fries are different.
And there's a lot of reasons there's still a fried food, right? Let's be clear.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they are not supporting our health in any way,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
So
yet,
total craving.
there's balance. And why we crave foods is a whole hour plus long conversation unto
Mm-hmm.
itself.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot
Mm-hmm.
of different reasons. Sometimes we crave foods for emotional reasons, sometimes we
I
crave
was
foods
gonna
for
say that
physical reasons. And yeah.
somebody said that to me, that when you crave sugar, it has something to do with your pancreas, and I'm like, or
So
you
sugar
are
is
emotionally, needy at that
sugar is
moment.
typically sugar is typically connected to protein. So when we crave sugar, what our body really needs is typically protein.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if there's an emotional piece happening, it's not necessarily tied to nutrients. It's tied to, like, what is that emotional connection? Is
Right.
it family? Is it comfort? Is it, like, what else is going on? What
Mm-hmm.
is that association that you have with those things? You
And
know?
it's also the time
So,
of the month, because when
sure.
when we are on
Hormones.
our period and our hormones are going nuts on us, then we want the ice cream, we want the French fries, we want certain food that give us um that feeling of comfort that we probably don't crave when we're okay, the rest of the
Right.
month, we're not even stressed.
Right. Stress creates a lot of cravings, right?
Mm-hmm.
By the way, your genetics can create cravings. So there are different genetic variations that make us, more likely to crave salty or sugary things or crunchy things.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things that play into cravings. I think the piece to really understand about cravings is it's not a moral failing. I think people feel like we're not supposed to crave something, or we
Mm-hmm.
crave the fries and there's something wrong with us. Like, cravings, like hunger,
Right.
are another way that the body communicates with us. So, what is the body trying to tell us through this
Mm-hmm.
craving? You know, Is it that I need comfort? Is it that I need stress relief? Is it that I need a break? Right? I think especially for a lot of women, we power through. We keep going. We put the blinders on and we just go.
Right.
And especially, I mean, when I used to work in hedge funds, it was like, I ate lunch. I ate breakfast and lunch sitting at this desk while working, right?
Right.
And then pandemic, everybody's working from home. And now this is my theory. This isn't actual science, but I believe that we can justify taking a break to eat something. We cannot justify or we don't automatically justify
Yeah.
taking a break because we need a break.
Yeah.
And so, in an effort to, give ourselves a break, we
Mm-hmm.
eat because otherwise we should be, one of my least favorite words, right? We
Mm-hmm.
should be focused. We should be productive. We should be
Right.
doing
We
all
should
these
be
things,
busy because that's what
Right.
makes us feel worthy and
Right.
needed and everything else. It's an emotional process that we go through. But yeah, we can talk hours about that for sure.
Yeah.
But
And
so
I have episodes on all this too for people. Like there's one
that's what
called,
I was gonna say.
yeah,
So
yeah,
your podcast is called Salad with a Side of Fries, and you
yes,
give a lot of advice about the way people should be eating. That's your way to pay forward, which is mine too. And my podcast, I like to coach women through my podcast because not everybody has the time or not everybody can afford a one-on-one coaching. So this is our way of paying
right.
back. Um, your episodes come once a week.
Yeah, there's actually so there's a full episode every Wednesday and a bonus small bite-sized episode every Friday. So Wednesdays are the full episodes, Friday are the bite-sized bonus episodes I call nutrition nuggets. And it's nutrition, wellness, weight management,
Mm-hmm.
lifestyle. It's really overall health and well-being. Um, but we really focus a lot on, metabolic health, you know, in that space too. But yeah, I call it wellness without the weirdness is how we've been described. And, it's keeping it approachable. It's having our health and living our lives.
And it's so important, we take it for granted. I
Right.
mean, I for once, I like food for me is not indispensable and it should be because it's the fuel for my body. And sometimes I have to remind myself of, taking a break and eating. Um, but I was so excited about having you in the show because I'm going through different changes in my life because of the menopause. And I see the changes in my body and I see these changes in my cravings. And like me, I'm sure there is a lot of women that are going through something like that. So everything that you
Yep.
have shared today is so valuable because information is power. The more we know about what's good for us, the better we can take care of ourselves, our health, and in our state of mind because it's everything connected. So I so
Right.
much appreciate you being here. Is there anything you would like to add?
Oh, well, first of all, thank you for having me. I appreciate you in this conversation. I think, you know, to your point and what you're saying, it's I think knowing what to do, the difference between knowing what to do and actually doing it is understanding why, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
try to bring that for everybody. And then there's a piece of how, right? How do we implement it? How do we make this part of our lives? And I think that's where, the coaching comes in to help you
Mm-hmm.
figure out how to make this work for you. It's not about doing what your friend does. It's not about doing what you see on the internet. It's
Right.
figuring out how to make everything work for you.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's why you do what you do and I do what I do. And there are resources out there to help. You don't have to figure it out on your own. So, Salad with a Side of Fries podcast. On my website is a saladwithasideoffries.com. There's a free download that you can grab there called It's Not What to Eat, It's How to Eat.
I
So you
love
guys
that. I'm
can,
gonna go and
yeah, so you
download it
guys can,
myself.
yes, so grab that. That's a little free gift for everybody. Thank you for having me. And all social media, I'm at Jenn Trepeck, JennTrepeck. Please reach out. I love hearing from everybody. So thank you
And
again, Claudia.
I'm gonna have all your information in the description of the show. And I really appreciate you giving us all these tips because I think everybody can use it. You know, our
Yeah.
life, our body is a perfect machine, but we need to take care of it the same way we take care of the car, which is a good
Right.
machine too. But if we need some oil and we need some gas and we need some fluids, we need to give it to the car so the car can function, and we got to do the same thing with our bodies. So thank you so much,
Yes.
Jen. I really enjoyed this talk.
Thank you, Claudia. Me too. Appreciate it.
Thank you all for listening to the Don't Shrink to Fit podcast. If you like this episode, please write a juicy comment below and subscribe to my podcast. Remember, we can only fly if we embrace each other. Until next week, be happy, be safe, and be kind to yourself.